this week with Joe Mishak from Aardvark Home Inspections. He's going to help us out and tell us what, as a buyer, you want to look for in a home inspector, as well as look around the house and talk to sellers about what needs to be done prior to listing or for inspection. So let's get started.
We have a lot of buyers ask what they should be looking at for when they're looking at homes. So, Joe, what about windows? What do they need to look for?
Sure. Some of the things that a buyer should look for when looking at a home is the windows. Right away you can tell that these are nice newer windows. They're an all vinyl window. They are double pane rather than single pane, which is going to save a lot of money when there's snow on the ground like today. So one of the things also that you can check out, like these windows are nice. They're double pane, double hung, so they open from both the top and the bottom. And the other thing that makes these windows really nice is they actually tip out, so you can clean both sides of the window. And so just basically taking a look at the windows is going to tell you a lot. You know, if they're painted shut and they're missing the storm paints, you know that pretty quickly within living there you're going to have to replace the windows.
Okay, Joe, I have a lot of buyers asking me about the age of the furnace and water heater and their life expectancy.
Okay, sure. So obviously water heater and furnace is one of the most expensive aspects of the home. So you can usually tell the age of the furnace if you look at the county's inspection tag. This one here tells us it was installed in 1995. So if it was installed in 95 or was inspected in 95, we could pretty much guess that it was probably put in at 95, and the age is typically 1 year later than that. So this furnace is probably from 1994. The other thing that you want to look at when looking at a furnace is if it's a high efficiency or an 80% furnace. It's pretty easy to tell. You can tell by the exhaust here. This is an aluminum exhaust, and a high efficiency furnace runs a PVC exhaust. Obviously a high efficiency furnace is going to last you a little longer and cost you a little less to run. Life expectancy on a gas forced air furnace is anywhere from 15 to 25 years. As far as a water heater is concerned, you want to make sure that it's an ample size. We can tell just by looking at this is a correct size. It's a 40 gallon. Now if you see the water heater and it's tremendously skinnier, you know that maybe it's a 30 gallon. It may not work if you're going to have a family living in the house. A water heater may be a little harder to find. You can usually pick the date out of the serial number on the water heater. An electric water heater is going to last you quite a bit longer than a gas water heater. And typically we want it to be between 40 and 50 gallons. An electric water heater, this one is actually from 1986 and it's still going strong. A typical gas water heater will last you, if it's new, anywhere from 6 to 12 years. So you can basically have to, you don't know when you're going to have to replace it. A typical gas water heater, if you call somebody out of the book to replace it, you're going to spend anywhere between $750 and $1,000. Furnace, if you're going with a high efficiency furnace, you can typically expect to pay anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000, depending on the size of the unit and where it's located.
So, Joe, what are some things you should look for within your home inspector? What should you ask them if they do? Are there any other inspections that should be done? What about reports?
Sure, that's a great question. Things to look for with a home inspector when you're calling around, trying to decide which home inspector you should use. Some of the questions you should ask are, do you go in the attic? Do you actually walk the attic? If we have a crawl space, are you going to physically get into the crawl space and crawl the crawl space? What type of insurance does your home inspector have? Every home inspector should carry liability insurance. That's mandated by the state. But beyond that, errors and omissions insurance. So should something happen, there's something to fall back on. The other questions that you could ask is, how long is the inspection going to take? You know, if the inspection is going to take an hour, that's probably not the home inspector for you. Inspection should take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, depending on condition and size of the home. Another great question is, what type of report do you have? You should be looking for a home inspector that has a computer-generated report with color pictures. And you could also ask who the report is distributed to. Typically, the report is distributed to the buyer, and with the consent of the buyer, the buyer's agent. The first question that everybody typically asks is the cost of the inspection. Obviously, the cost is very important, but the cost is typically minimal as you compare it to the cost of the house. You definitely don't want to go with necessarily the cheapest home inspector, maybe not the most expensive, but you need to know what you're getting for your money. Does your home inspector offer any sort of warranty? Is there anything included with the home inspection that maybe is extra with other home inspectors? You know, is your home inspector including a termite inspection, looking for wood destroying insect inspections? And that brings up another thing of additional inspections that you should maybe order when you're purchasing a home. Some of the things that are not included typically with a home inspection would be a termite inspection, a radon test to see if there's high levels of radon gas in the home, water test so you know what you may be drinking if you're purchasing a home that's on a well, a septic inspection if your home is in a rural area and it has a septic tank, what to expect out of it, how long it's going to last you, and what repair or replacement cost is going to be on that septic system. So there's a lot of things that go along with trying to decide who to use for your home inspection, and as far as the cost of the home inspection as well.
Great, thanks Joe. Adam, what do you have for our sellers?
Great, Ashley, good information. Joe, what should a seller do, I guess, prior to listing their home to get it ready for those buyers or potentially inspections done on the property?
Sure. Great question. Simple things help a lot, like making sure that the smoke alarms in the home work correctly, maybe run water in each sink, check underneath, make sure you don't see any leaking anywhere. Another one that can save a lot of time too is also maybe have somebody come out and do a quick roof inspection for you. Typically you can pay somebody about $60 to come out and do a quick roof inspection, kind of let you know condition, and that's something that would be huge for making sure that you're not getting into something over your head as far as needing things done to the house.
I guess that brings up another good point is pre-listing inspection. So I've got a seller who's going to list the house. I've had some sellers ask me, and I think it's a great idea personally, is to have the home pre-inspected prior to listing the house. I guess, what are your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, that's a great question. We certainly do a lot of those now, and it's gaining steam as we go along. It's a great idea to have pre-listing inspection. We can come in, evaluate the home, let them know things that they may need to do before they list the home. So that way, when they do list the home, hey, they can say, here's the home inspection report, here's the things that were found, and then here's the receipts for items that we've had fixed. Now that doesn't mean necessarily that nothing would be found on an additional home inspection, but it should be minor things that would be found on a new one. It shouldn't be anything like a new roof or foundation issues or anything that's really going to stop or kill a deal right in its tracks. It would be pretty minor things. So it certainly streamlines the entire process.
Well, I guess the reason I'm a big fan of it is if there's any issues, you can address them and you're aware of them prior to getting the house sold, then doing the inspections and issues there. So that way you have everything down and you know where it's at. So
yeah. The other thing it does is gives you a lot larger timeline. If you've sold the house and you have an inspection done, you only have a certain amount of time to get those repairs done and an answer. If you're doing it before you're listing the home, you have as much time as you need there to really get a lot of estimates and get it taken care of.
Perfect. Great, Joe. So as a seller, we've got an accepted offer with the buyer, and you're going to come out and do an inspection. What are some of the tips that the sellers, knowing that the inspector's coming out, should do or have available or ready for you?
Certainly. Good question. One of the things that we find the most is making sure that the electrical panel is accessible. Every home inspector should be removing the cover to inspect the wiring on the inside of the panel. Typically about one inspection a week with our company. This is either covered with things in front of it that we can't get to, or somebody has installed drywall or shelving over top of it. So a very simple one is just making sure that the electrical panel is accessible. Another thing is take pets out of the house. If you have pets in your home, you know pretty far in advance when the inspection is going to be. It certainly helps out if there are no pets in the house, so we don't have to make sure that animals aren't trying to run outside or watching children around.
Great.
So another great tip is to make sure that the attic access is accessible. Not all of them are in a garage or a pull down, but in this case, this is a pull down attic from in the garage. A lot of times when people leave, they'll leave a car in the garage. It's always a good idea to take that car out of the garage or move any stored items so that we can get into the pull down ladder access. As well as if the access is in the second floor closet, make sure that that closet is cleaned out so your inspector can get into the attic at the time of the inspection and not have to return.
Whether you choose to call Joe from Aardvark or any home inspector, just make sure they're licensed. Thanks so much for your time today, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Joe. The question of the week this week is, what was the restaurant we reviewed last week? If you know the answer, email me, adamsmith@coldbanker.com, or Ashley at aadams@cbrwg.com to be entered into the gift certificate drawing. And don't forget to like us on Facebook. We'll see you next week. Thanks.